Once your lab is created in Limfinite and you're ready to start processing samples, one of the first things you'll want to do is set up the sample types and test types. This tutorial will take you through the process of setting those up and should answer any questions you have about the process. And the first thing we'll set up is a sample type. To do that, we click the Admin button on the top right-hand side of the menu bar at the top of the page, and we'll select Sample and Test Types from the drop-down list. And that takes us to the all-in-one Sample Types and Test Types editor. The first thing we will click, since we're adding a sample type, is the Add Sample Type option just below the Sample Types header. And as soon as we click that button, we see that a new row is added in the grid, and we can just type in our sample information. In this case, we're going to type water, and then we'll click the Update button. The sample type is automatically added to the grid, as you can see here. And next, we will make a sample subtype for the sample type we've just created. Creating a sample subtype is very similar to creating a sample type, except first we need to select the sample type that we would like to make the subtype for. So we'll make one for the sample type we just created, which is water. So we'll select that from the grid. And now we will select the Add New Sample Subtype button from the bar of the To Sample Subtypes table. And as before, we see that a new row is added to the grid below. And in this row, we will type well water testing just for this example. Click the Update button and the changes will be saved. Next, we'll talk about the process of creating test types. Test types correspond to sample types and sample subtypes, and therefore we'll need to select a sample type and sample subtype from the tables above before we can add a new test type. Once we've selected the sample type and sample subtype, we can click the Add New Test Type button from the test types table that you would like to create a test type for. For this example, we will create a new test type for the water sample type and well water sample subtype. And now, as you can see, there's a new row in the test types table allowing us to input the data for our new test type. And for this example, we're going to type a test type name of E. coli in water, and then moving to the method field, which is where you would input the laboratory's method used to test for E. coli in water. We're just going to type the same thing again, E. coli in water. Next, we have the library option, which is used to filter the results in your lab's work list. If you don't have any libraries set up yet, you can just skip this step. Libraries will be covered in a separate set of instructions. Next, we want to type the number of significant figures that you would like to show in the test results in the sig fig field. So for this example, we'll type 3 in that field. The next field, default unit, specifies the unit of measure that will be shown for the test results. For this example, we'll use CFU 100 milliliter. The lower limit field and the upper limit field are optional fields. These fields can be used for test types where the results should fall within a required range to be acceptable. The fields can both be left blank, or they can be calculated on a claim or guarantee value. Contact us if you would like these limits to be calculated based on a sample claim or guaranteed values, and we can also assign the corresponding result qualifiers based on the calculations. The default price field is used by Limfinite to charge customers via the customer portal. This is also an optional field. It will be needed if you choose to use the payment methods available through limfinite.com. For this example, we'll just set the default price to $30. The prep procedure field is used primarily for two things. First, it will define the procedure which your lab will use to prepare the sample for analysis. And second, it will tell Limfinite if a separate container number will need to be generated if the prep procedures are different between two or more analyses for the same sample. We can leave this blank for now. Adding the prep procedures is covered in another set of instructions. Now that we've created a sample type, subtype, and test type, let's talk a little bit about how to use those in the application. To use these, first click on the sample receiving link from the menu bar at the top of the page. Add a new package. You can see the Creating Samples in Lims video for instructions on how to do that. Add a new sample to the newly created package. Select a row from the samples table that corresponds to the newly created sample. Now, click the Edit Tests button from the bar at the top of the table. You should see a pop-up window that shows a table of sample types. The sample type that you just created, water, should be in this table. Select the water sample type, and when the corresponding sample subtypes are displayed, select the well water testing subtype from the table. The corresponding test types are displayed below, so we'll select E. coli in water well water testing from the left-hand Not Selected list, then click the Add button from the group of buttons between the Not Selected list and the Selected list, and notice that the test is moved to the selected list. Click the Save button to save this test to your sample, and note that clicking the Save button is required or your changes will not be persisted. You can view the test saved to your sample in the Samples table. And that concludes this tutorial. You can also view the Creating Samples in Lims video to see more examples of using the sample types, subtypes, and test types that are created by a lab.